in compensation for him being the health officer, county health?
You can do that, but so that was,
Is that something that we want to do?
you could, that's a kind of a low rate, and that was kind of a low rate because it was built in at the end, he would have this big cost of moving and disposing of the building. So let's say we decouple that. At the end of whatever period of time, the county is gonna, through public auction, whatever the statutes tell us of how we're gonna dispose of this building, we're gonna do that. If that's the case, now we're back to what's the fair market value for him to lease this building till the term of his use is done. That would be cleaner for how to structure the agreement.
The other question is if we remain possession of the building, are we responsible to maintain it?
We can work that into the lease agreement. The first draft was that he was responsible for all maintenance. And that he would agree to occupy it as is without the county having to come in and replace X and Y and Z. We could do that.
So to a couple of legal questions, Corey, the equity issue. So you've been working with Dr. Campbell's attorney on this for 2 years. Based on that, and you've been negotiating, we've met with you a couple of times, based on that, does he really have a claim of equity since you've been working with his attorney now for 2 years?
Well, I'd say we've been working in fits and starts. Part of the issue was, if you recall, for the first period of time, there was a question over the validity of the transfer of the property to the county. Because what was initially raised with me was the hospital didn't actually even have a board of directors meeting where they voted to transfer it. And the county never actually accepted it. The county, until I think last summer, the county commission never actually voted to accept the building, as far as I can tell. And so, but that's all passed. I don't think anyone's continuing to raise that question. But that was what delayed us initially. Then the second issue went to, I don't recall what the second issue was that delayed us, but ultimately now we're at a point where we've gone back and forth, and I've been dealing with it in fits and starts, but I've mostly been putting it on the back burner, trying to figure out how to do this and work on other stuff. So here's where the equity comes in. The equity comes in where he has foregone the benefit of being paid as the county health officer for the last several months. So by law, that triggers, it's called a reliance. He did that in reliance on that was gonna be part of our deal. That's where, in areas of property and areas of actions without a written agreement, that's how the court handles that. It's a complicated thing. It would be a long, frustrating, convoluted litigation if we ever went to it. There'd be no reason for it. Neither party would have a reason to do that.
So we used to pay the health officer $5,000 at the end of the fiscal year. Since we're still 5 months, 6 months out from that, we could still pay him for this last year. So what effect would that have on equity?
Is that how much it was? I thought it was less than that.
5,000?
Yeah.
No, that's what we've been doing.
And it's not monthly?
No, it's always been in June of the fiscal year.
That's interesting. I thought I heard from Debbie that was a monthly deal, but I could be mistaken on that.
Okay, so that would be the other question. And then I did actually talk to a construction worker and asked him how much would it cost to move that building. He said, $3,500. So then that would be, probably taking care of it at the transfer station. If there have been people who have thought that they would like to actually bid on that building if it were up for auction. That being said, what's it worth? It's worth what somebody will pay. But the law says, and I asked you about Title VII, Chapter 8 a couple of times when we got together. My reading of the law says that if you want to sell it, you have to get 3 different appraisals of the property, and you cannot sell it to a for-profit business for less than 90% of that. If you put it for auction and nobody wants to buy it, you can sell it for 70%. If nobody wants it at that cost, you can give it to another nonprofit, a county department, something like that, but you cannot give it to a for-profit business. So my other question with equity is, if the law says you may not give county property to a private for-profit business, then we probably shouldn't be doing that anymore. And we've been doing it for a couple of years. So I'm thinking we're way out on a limb on this, especially since there are people who are interested.
Well, we haven't given it to anybody, so I don't know that that's the issue.
It's being used lease-free, rent-free, purchase-free by a for-profit business. Now, just looking at the law, say it was another building. Say somehow we acquired the commercial bar, and we decided to go ahead and let the current owner operate it without paying any of the ownership, no rent, no lease, and not buying the bar, we'd be hanging way out there legally, I would think, especially if somebody came to us and said, you know, I'd really like to operate that commercial bar. I think I could make a nice living there. And we're saying, no, we're letting it go to somebody that we've decided we're just gonna give it to. So that's why I wanted to have this discussion. If it's better to lease it, then I think we still need to work with our realtors, because there's a lot of business spaces in town for lease. We shouldn't be undercutting our local businesses by leasing county space to a for-profit business, that's where the difference comes in, for $0.00. One of the things we talked about a couple of months ago was comparing that building to another building in comparable shape, and that's the professional building. Great, historic building, but it needs some TLC. He charges $5 a square foot. If we went to the low ball and did the same thing, still think we should have an appraised square foot analysis, but if we did the same thing, we're talking about roughly $15,000 a year in lease payments. We receive that in, and then if that is the person we use as our medical health director, then we pay $5,000 out. But I'm very uncomfortable having county property that we are essentially giving to a for-profit business, especially when Title VII, Chapter 8 pretty much says thou shalt not do that. And it's been 2 years. So that's the other place that my stress level on this comes. If we were talking 2 months, yeah, we're in process. It's been 2 years,
So, what direction do you want to go? You want to go do a lease and deal with the sale separately whenever that term ends? Is that what you want to do? A competitive lease where it's not, it may or may not be the 5,000, it might be more of that? And, I mean, I don't agree that this is some kind of a gift, I mean, giving to the building to Doc Campbell. That's not what, if you look at the circumstances of how this was thrust upon us, especially without notice to him, I mean, his tenant rights were not respected at all. I think we have to keep that in mind in the calculation of this. But what do you want? Do you want me to go back and pursue a lease, and the whole sale and future disposal is just simply left out of the discussion right now? That'd be the cleanest way to operate.
I guess from my standpoint, what I'm thinking is let's say like any other transaction or lease billing that you would do as a businessman, it's probably the cleanest way to go. Have a contract, a lease agreement, charge rent, and that's the best way to go. That's what I'm thinking.
I agree with Daryl, charge lease though instead of rent, and as is, maintenance is on them, and then what we get from the lease, we put into a fund to pay for disposal. And I think we should set a certain amount of time. It was supposed to be temporary in 1980 for 3 years. We're in 2019. That building is in sad shape, very sad shape. I think the lease agreement also needs to state that the insurance will be paid by the leasee because of how rough shape it's in. And I would say no more than I don't know, it was supposed to be 3 years even when we were talking 2 years ago. So I don't know, what do you guys think on that?
Well, you know, and I guess if we're gonna require them to maintain it and insure the building, or whatever the payment is for the lease needs to reflect that as well, you know. What I'm
You
saying?
know, I think it needs to be comparable to what you would be paying in the professional building, or one of the buildings we have downtown. Again, we have quite a few, not quite a few, I think we have 3, with leasable space in them. Whatever they're charging, we need to be in the same ballpark for the same quality. But I would imagine those are also lease agreements based on, this is probably lower than you'll find anywhere else, or lower than you'll find at a brand new refurbed building like the Creamery. But upkeep's up to you. I don't know of any businesses downtown that have a cut deal like
Yeah.
that, but they do get a cut rate because it's not a newly refurbed building. The Creamery's at $12 a square foot, is my understanding, so
Right.
I don't think we should go that high.
I would think that though, even though you lease a space in a building downtown, you're still not gonna be responsible for the building itself if something happens. You're responsible for your contents, but you're not responsible for insuring the building itself, right? You know, if it burns down, for example.
I don't know, I don't know,
I mean,
maybe not, maybe
that's
so, I
ones
think
that
it
I've been
depends on the
involved with,
leases.
that's usually how it works.
Okay,
Um,
I just don't want that to fall on the county.
mhm.
I just wanna protect the citizens from maintenance on a building that's
Right.
in really sad shape.
So that's something that needs to be in the lease. I mean, who's gonna insure it? The building itself, whether it's gonna be the county or Procter
Well,
Gamble?
did you guys just add it right now to the prior
We
thing on the
did,
agenda?
we did.
We had to.
We
Right.
did, we had to, but going forward,
Well, for one thing, we are not gonna insure their personal stuff within, they would
Correct.
need renter's insurance for that,
yep,
right?
yep.
We all agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
But maybe a realtor would be somebody to engage with this, who's done this before. That way we don't have to reinvent the wheel, it can get done more quickly. And I would like to keep this on the agenda on a weekly basis till we get it taken care of.
Sure.
Just because it's been so long.
I would think we just make that lease for 2 years.
I think that's a very fair compromise.
And then at the end of the 2 years, Corey, so at the end of the 2-year lease, would we have to auction the building, or we would have to just put it up for sale for competitive bid?
Are you saying that's 2 years and you're not gonna renew anything more than that?
I don't think
I
so.
mean, is it gonna be renewable?
If he's gonna retire in 3, I don't see us renewing the
Well,
lease.
I don't know.
My worry is that building is in such sad shape that if we don't have a short time frame, like 2 years again, very fair, that something's gonna happen, and we're gonna be held liable in some degree. I'm worried about it, so. Would we be looking at the equity issue if we said we're gonna do a 2-year lease? And at that time, we followed Title VII, Chapter 8, and got it appraised. We could even have it appraised in the next 2 years, but anyway, followed that process of seeing if anybody is interested in an auction, and then they would move it at that time, and we'd go ahead and refab the property.
I think my goal would be to structure it so that we solve the equity problem.
I think that would be the most fair to the clients too. They don't have to look at a different location. They have 2 years.
Yeah.
I think a deal like this, ordinarily, the county would insure the building as you did. The lessee may be required with their own insurance to name the county as an additional insurer. That may be the way to go.
Okay.
I'll do a little work on that.
And then as far as a lease price, would we follow, I don't recall seeing anything in the lease part of the statute that says that you need the 3 different appraisers, like if you were going to sell the building, but would we be wise to engage 3 property managers or realtors for what the lease should be,
Yeah,
based
I-
on
I
the other
think-
leases in town?
Yeah, I think obviously the market rate we're talking about is here, and so I think we could look at other properties and then account for some if they're brand new versus some that are not, and come back with a range of what those values are, so that that's reflected in terms of the public discussion.
Sure.
Okay. I would think that'd be something we 3 could work on, unless you want that in the legal realm, Corey.
Say that last part?
I would think that would be something we 3 could work on, unless you wanted something in the legal realm. If you wanted to say it was a county attorney duty.
Well, no, I mean, I'm fine with, just crafting the agreement. If someone wants to provide input on that, that's fine, as far as market rate.
You have a question?
Just a quick question. If Mr. Campbell agrees with the agreement that's moving forward now to go, for example, 2 years, and the end of the 2 years, is the county really, are they not in a position, since it's a county-owned building, to go ahead and use county, I guess you could say, inside resources? For example, the county owns an excavator and dump trucks, et cetera, to dispose of the building at the county's expense without having to go out and make new bids and to advertise for auction. I guess I'm just curious if the county is in a legal position to be able to just say, hey, lease is over, we're not gonna renew leases with anyone, the building is junk, if you will, maybe using the wrong term, but it's in dire problems. And so in the best interest of the county, rather than hiring outside contractors to remove and dispose of the building, I'm thinking, why wouldn't the county itself be, because we do have tax-paid equipment on the ground, that we could actually take care of that?
I don't see why we couldn't. I guess the opposite side of that is that if it's valued at over 2,500, you have to auction, you would still have to offer it for auction. If it's valued at over 2,500, you have to offer it for auction. If you have no buyers, then you could dispose of it. I don't know why the county couldn't just dispose of it
Okay,
without hiring outside people, like you said.
That value cannot be just written off if it's over the 25, so it would have to go with that process.
Yeah, I think that you still have to, if it's valued over that, I think you still have to do some kind of a sale on it.
Public process, okay.
I'm assuming that that's what you have to do when you court, or,
I think the question is,
Go ahead.
and I guess the other side of that is if you're gonna go in there, I don't even wanna say it, but how much asbestos is in there?
It's an old building.
And I think, it's in here somewhere, and Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read this somewhere. We could tomorrow give it to a not-for-profit, a county department, another political subdivision, regardless of the cost of the building, or regardless of the
Oh,
appraised
okay.
value of the building. I wouldn't think that a smart commission would opt to tear it down without looking at other potentials, especially if somebody's interested in purchasing the building. So we wouldn't be talking about first of all, I don't think we'd be talking about anyone contracted to tear down a building, because you're right, we do have the resources to do that. So that would be probably not a real responsible thing to do. But second of all, we'd be most fiscally responsible to at least give the public a chance to purchase the building. And then if they were not interested, then we'd ask if anybody was interested. Then you'd go to the other steps. So that would, your idea would probably never be considered, but if it were, it'd be the very last consideration.
And I think that you can put the wheels back on it and pull it away. It's a
Right.
three-piece modular. So it's just, you don't even have to demo it.
Okay, anyway, was just curious because there was,
And I think that's why the removal cost was so low at 3,500, is exactly because you could just put wheels under it again and move it out. As far as replanting the grass, that would be on us, and we have staff for that. So on this discussion, what do you say the three of us each contact a realtor in town who does property management? And see if we can't get some kind of a market analysis for lease rates.
Yeah, we do that, make sure we
Okay.
don't call the same one
Right, right.
I'll talk to Marcia about it.
though.
Okay,
Right? And I guess I'm not really familiar who all is in town, I guess we have Mike Harvey and.
Jeannie
Jeannie.
Steele.
you already talked to Jeannie, you wanna take Jeannie?
I'll talk to Jeannie.
Okay, that's who I was gonna grab, I'll go with Jenny Lonser,
Okay,
all right.
okay.
Okay, so if there's anything else, there's not anything else, any other comments or discussion? We will adjourn till 1:30, which is the public health Teresa Munson. Recess.